you're swimming in the ocean and hear this sound, run fast. For thousands of years, sailors told stories of a massive sea beast that could wrap around the entire earth and swallow ships whole. But what if I told you giant sea monsters were actually real? 2008, paleontologists found something in Peru's desert that made them question everything. They found the fossils of a giant whale they wanted to name the Leviathan. But since that name was already being used to classify another sea creature, they call it the Leviathan. The Leviathan was a whale that was the ocean's apex predator and was big enough to hunt megalodons for breakfast. This colossal beast looked like a giant sperm whale and had teeth over a foot long in both jaws. Their teeth were so massive that just one tooth weighs more than your entire head, and bro's bite force was even greater than a T-Rex. We're talking 40,000 pounds per square inch. Leviathan whales hunted in pods like modern sperm whales, but each one was 60 feet of pure destruction. Imagine a whole squad of rage with daggers for teeth and hungrier than queso on a diet swimming in the same water as you. What makes them even scary is that they even had echolocation so advanced they could see a megalodon's heartbeat from miles away. While megalodons were out here thinking they own the ocean, the Leviathan whale said bet and demolished everything in sight. We scientists actually think they went extinct for the same reason as the megalodon: lack of food, changing of the ocean's temps, and increased competition. But this insanely savage whale was just the beginning of the chaos we're about to go through in this video. Wait until you see what other mythical creatures actually existed, and the last one's the scariest of all. What do you get when a bear, a sloth, and a forklift have an identity crisis together? Something that shouldn't exist, but did. You would cook up this overstuffed menace, the megatherium, and wait until you hear what they sound like, because it's so much scarier than how they look. Imagine a sloth the size of an elephant that could stand up and fight your entire family. This oversized creature was basically a massive vegetarian and looked like an ugly prehistoric panda or your grandma. This absolute beast weighed around 8,000 pounds and had claws that could slice through trees like they were pool noodles. These claws weren't for fighting though, they were for stripping bark and digging up roots like nature's excavator. But unlike modern sloths that move slower than your grandma getting out of bed, these things could actually move fast when they needed to. They were over 12 feet tall when standing and weighed as much as a car. We scientists believe that early humans might have actually hunted these giants to extinction. Imagine being a caveman with a pointy stick trying to take down something that looks like King Kong's cousin. Cave paintings even showed our ancestors going toe to toe with these creatures that could bench press a Honda Civic. These giants survived ice ages and saber-toothed cats, but couldn't survive us, bro. You know us humans go human, bro. The last ones died out around the times humans showed up in South America. But there are stories from the locals in the Amazon who say they spotted massive hairy creatures walking up right through the jungle. And no, it wasn't your dad. Park rangers actually find enormous claw marks gouged into trees at heights no known animal can reach. Some satellite footage keeps picking up heat signatures moving through areas where nothing that large should actually exist. So could giant ground sloths actually still be out there? What if some giant ground sloths did find a way to survive in the deepest parts of the rainforest? Well, the next time you're camping and hear this sound, just remember, it might not be a bear, because this is what the megatherium sounded like. But honestly though guys, they are extinct, and I'm sure it's just people seeing bears and getting confused, like when you think you see your ex at the grocery store, but it's just another thick mannequin. Got him! Now what if you heard this sound walking in the woods? And no, that wasn't your dad in the bathroom. This creature is the woolly rhino. This thing was built like a bulldozer but dressed like a caveman. A literal two-horn ice age rage tank. Except this one had the personality of your hangry aunt when somebody eats her leftovers. These manic beasts were stomping around while humans were throwing rocks at them, and somehow, someway, we made it out alive, bro. Our ancestors took down these 4,000 murder carpets with giant toothpicks, and yet we can't figure out how to make it throughout the day without a phone, therapy, and 3 iced lattes. I mean, look at me! I can barely open a pickle jar. These thick beasts ruled the frozen tundra for years, but couldn't handle humans discovering the ancient art of let's all stab it together and have a barbecue. My guy got deleted by some squishies who were arguing probably over who was gonna carry all the spears. Cave paintings show our ancestors hunting these beasts and somehow not getting trampled into caveman pancakes. In 2024, scientists found one perfectly frozen in Siberia with his horn and soft tissue still intact. What if there are still some frozen ones out there that we could bring back? In fact, some scientists are talking about bringing this thing back, and here's where it gets crazy. They plan on using 14,000-year-old hyena doo-doo. I hope it doesn't turn out to be a crappy situation though. I'm not saying we should clone woolly rhinos, but imagine riding one of these beasts to work. Your commute would definitely be a maximum orange energy when you're mounted on 2 tons of prehistoric rage. Comment woolly if you think we should defrost these furry tanks and see what happens, fam. Do you think unicorns actually ever existed? The answer is yes, and you probably thought they were cute, right? Wrong! The original one looked like it could body slam a Cyber truck, then smile while turning your family tree into mulch. This real unicorn was actually a giant rhino called the Elasmotherium. Siberia. They were also known as the Siberian unicorn, and they were absolutely terrifying. Forget sparkles, man. This unicorn looked like it escaped from a Viking nightmare. Some researchers suggest certain cave paintings in France show these beasts walking among humans, which is probably how the unicorn myth started anyway. That means your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were dodging these furry tanks. Imagine you're a caveman minding your own business, and suddenly this armored nightmare with a jousting lance for a face comes charging at you. So this means early humans had to try to deal with this thing and run away from this walking nightmare charging at them over 30 miles an hour. Meanwhile, I get winded walking to my car. 13 feet of heavyweight pure destruction with the 6-foot horn that could punch through a car door. It's basically what happens when you give a rhino on steroids, a medieval lance, and zero chill. Your ancestors survived this monstrosity, and you can't handle someone cutting you off in traffic. But what's crazy about this one is that hunters in the remote wilderness are still report findings of massive skulls with giant horns in the Siberian wilderness. So the next time someone says unicorns aren't real, show them this horn-wielding maniac. And no, I'm not talking about me! If you love bacon, you're never gonna eat it after you see this freaky thing. No, not her, this thing. This is the Daeodon, also called the pigs from hell. This is what happened when God decided pigs need to be absolutely unhinged. Picture your worst nightmare about meeting a wild boar in the woods. Now make it the size of a small car with teeth like railroad spikes. Before these things went extinct, these hell pigs were running around North America turning everything else into their personal chew toy. We're talking about a 6-foot tall pig with teeth that could crunch through bones like I crunch through potato chips, man. And yes, before you ask, they tasted like bacon, but good luck getting close enough to find out, man. Early mammals took one look at this walking mayhem and said, nah bro, we're just gonna evolve into something else. The Daeodon had a skull bigger than a horse and jaws strong enough to bite through a tree trunk. Scientists found one skull that was 3 feet long. That's the size of a small TV! Now these guys weren't rolling around in the mud. They were the apex predators of their time, eating up everything that moved. Scientists found bite marks on fossils from other animals and went, yep, that's definitely hell pig damage. These beasts had such powerful bite force, they could crack open the legs and bones of other large animals just to get to the bone marrow. That's like using a sledgehammer to open a pistachio, except this pistachio is the size of a modern day rhinoceros. And an even more insane fact is that modern day paleontologists aren't even sure if these things were scavengers or active hunters. Like imagine not knowing if a 1,000 pig with bone crushing jaws was eating leftovers or actively coming after you. Either way, man, I'm staying inside on my couch eating chicken nuggets, because if you walked outside and heard the sound, it's too late. And if you heard this in the sky above you, this is too late. Imagine a bird so evil it made pigeons look like pacifists. This thing hunted like a slasher villain with feathers, and if you were alive back then, congrats, you were the snack. This thing was so big it could literally use humans as Uber Eats delivery meals. The Hast eagle was basically what happens when nature decides regular birds aren't terrifying enough and gives one a 2 million year long gym membership. It was like nature's airborne hitman. This winged terror had talons the size of your head and could swoop down to yoink prey right off the ground like they were picking up groceries. New Zealand used to be home to these flying creatures that could treat humans like Happy Meals with legs. Of course it was, bro. New Zealand is basically Australia 2.0. The indigenous people of New Zealand called them Powakai, or Old Glutton. Some legends basically claim that this translates to stay inside or become bird food. We're talking about eagles with 10-foot wingspans that can carry off a grown adult like I carry a whole grocery buggy full of chips. And get this, they only went extinct around 600 years ago, which means someone great-great-great-great-great-grandma probably got dive bombed by one of these savage feathered missiles. Meanwhile, you're scared of a goose that weighs 10 pounds. But hey fam, me too. Check this thing out.
Look at him.
The Hast eagle made modern predators look like basic house pets, because at least bears can't drop out the sky and delete you when you go into your lunch break. Today's eagles hunt fish and small mammals. The Hast eagle hunted anything that looked like it had a decent amount of meat on it. And I got a lot, bro. What's really crazy is that the Hast eagle actually adapted to gain 10 to 15 times its original body weight. That's faster than any animal in history. Even my weight gain during quarantine couldn't compare. In comparison, that's like if a chihuahua evolved into a wolf in a time it takes your phone to update. Now, a small descendant of this eagle is still alive today in Australia, looking all innocent while its psycho great-great-grandparents used to be out there playing human DoorDash. So yeah, the next time someone tells you size doesn't matter, remind them that a 2-pound bird evolved into a 40-pound human stature claw machine in record time. It's like someone gave that Pokemon Sparrow 15 levels worth of protein powder and taught it the move human yeet. Now imagine if Shrek's swamp had a final boss. Now give it teeth, make it angry, and shrink it just enough to fit under your bed. You just met Beelzebufo, aka the Devil Frog. And no, this isn't your grandma's garden pond hobby situation. This beast was 16 inches long, weighed 10 pounds, and had a bite force stronger than a wolf. Picture a demon frog the size of a small dog with anger management issues and a taste for baby dinosaurs. This thick amphibian lived in Madagascar and was basically what happens when evolution goes wild. So these things are basically Madagascar's boss fight. Of course it was Madagascar, bro. That place makes Australia look like a petting zoo. Scientists calculated its bite force at 2200 newtons. For comparison, your bite force is about 890 newtons. This frog could bite with over twice your strength. That's like having a tiger chomp down on you. But wait, it gets so much worse too. This thing had armor plating on its head like some kind of medieval battle frog. This hell frog is related to modern Pac-Man frogs, which means it had the same attack anything that moves energy. Except instead of eating crickets, this thing was out here snacking on small velociraptors and compies. And scientists believe it used ambush tactics. Just sitting there looking like a homeless rock until BAM! Some poor baby dinosaur goes to get a drink of water and suddenly the ground's open up and swallows it whole. And get this, the fossils scientists found were probably just teenagers because their skull bones weren't even fully fused yet. So before they went extinct, they were full-grown pit bull-sized adult devil frogs just hopping around terrorizing the entire ecosystem. I think God really said, let's make a frog, and then immediately said, actually, let's make it cursed. And they sounded like this. But if you think an armored devil frog that eats dinosaurs is the peak of nightmare fuel, wait until you see what's lurking in the deep. If you're swimming in the ocean and something grabs you, it might be the Kraken. Or it might be what we think the Kraken actually is. Let me introduce you to the ocean's angriest wet noodle that eats whales for snacky snacks. The Archaechuthus, or you would know it as the giant squid. And yes, these things are still alive today, bro! These things are basically the ocean's version of your worst nightmare with tentacles. We're talking about creatures that can grow over 40 feet long with eyes the size of dinner plates. Their tentacles have hooks on them, not suction cups like in cartoons. Actual hooks that can rip flesh. And here's the crazy part. We barely seen these things alive. For centuries, sailors told stories about massive sea creatures with tentacles that could drag entire ships underwater, and they called it the Kraken. And scientists were like, yeah, right. Those drunk sailors are just making things up. But then, in the early 2000s, Japanese researchers finally got the first photos of a giant living squid. Turns out the sailors weren't crazy. Just me, I guess. So these things are real, and they're absolutely terrifying. They live so deep in the ocean that the pressure would crush you instantly. But they're not just chilling down there eating plankton. These massive deep sea creatures can hunt sperm whales. Scientists find giant squid scars on sperm whales all the time, which means these tentacle monsters are out here throwing hands with some of the ocean's biggest predators. The giant squid's beak can actually bite through steel cable too. And yeah, squids have beaks like evil parrots. Of course, we know almost nothing about them because they live in one place on Earth that's harder to explore than space. Imagine you're dehydrated, half delirious, and lost at sea, and suddenly you see a half-fish woman singing at you. Congrats, that's either a mermaid or your brain just giving up. You ever get catfished by a fish? Sailors did for centuries. For many centuries, sailors have sworn they saw beautiful half-woman, half-fish creatures singing by the rocks or swimming in the open seas. They have scales, no legs, and might drag you to your watery death. Plot twist, they were probably just looking at sea cows, and no, not your... You thought I was gonna say mom? Why would I do that, man? I would never say anything about your mom. She's sweet, beautiful, kind, and she lets you watch me. Sea cows are also known as manatees. Manatees are the ocean's least attractive mammals, yet somehow convinced drunk sailors they were seeing supermodels. I mean, thick manatees need love too, bro. But here's where it gets very interesting. Every single culture on Earth has mermaid legends. Vikings called them Margir, which means sea spirit or sea goddess. I think I spit in my throat on that. The Greeks have what they call sirens, and the Caribbean cultures have what they call Aishaya. Ha! Y'all didn't think I could say that. I think I did. And Japan has the Ningyo, which means human fish and is actually closely related to the word Ningen, which literally means human. So either an entire planet collectively decided to make up the same story, or there's something in the water that's more terrifying than a substitute teacher who actually read the lesson plan. Of course, scientists say it's our brain seeing human faces in random patterns. Like when you see Jesus in your toast, except it's scary deep sea fish ladies, aliens in murky water. So manatees are definitely real, definitely thick, and definitely not singing and dragging anyone down to their doom, but they do freak out in water like this. Whoa! I mean, kind of like Swifties. Shake it off! So are mermaids real or just thick manatees having an identity crisis? I guess anything's possible, except for my hair coming back. No, they aren't real, but if they were, they would be more like the stuff of nightmares lurking in the deep, waiting for the next confused sailor to make the mistake for something friendly, or well, friendly-ish. What would you do if you heard this sound at night? That's the sound of something that is like a coyote, a blender, and your sleep paralysis demon all in one. You get the chupacabra. Basically a cryptid with the appetite of meat at an all-you-can-eat buffet. This thing has been draining the blood out of farm animals across Latin America since the 1990s, and nobody knows what the heck it actually is. Picture a lizard-dog hybrid with spikes down its back, glowing red eyes, and a serious attitude problem. Kind of like that school bully who peaked in 6th grade and still thinks stealing lunch money is a career path. The legends actually started in Puerto Rico when farmers kept finding their goats completely drained of blood with weird puncture wounds. No signs of struggle, no missing meat, just dead animals with 2 perfect holes in their necks. This thing's kind of like a vampire, but uglier and with the most deranged table manners. And no, not your sick. The first official sighting described the creature about 4 foot tall, gray-green skin, huge black eyes, and spikes running down his spine. Basically what you get if an alien and a kangaroo had a baby and raised it on energy drinks. But here's where it gets weird. Every country describes it differently. Mexico said it looks like a hairless dog with fangs. Texas claims it's more reptilian with leathery skin. Chile insists it can fly and has bat wings. It's like the chupacabra has different regional variants, which is either very good marketing or really bad eyewitness testimony. Scientists say most chupacabra sightings are just mangy coyotes or dogs with skin diseases, or some old creepy white-headed bald dude with a beard. Wait! Bro! But explain this. How does a sick coyote drain all the blood from a 200-pound goat without leaving claw marks? And why do the puncture wounds look surgical instead of animal bites? The weirdest part though, it only showed up after a bunch of UFO sightings in the same areas. Coincidence? Government experiment going wrong? Hey, the last few years could have been cursed enough that I'm not saying I do or don't believe. This thing could still be out there somewhere, supposedly terrorizing livestock and giving farmers regular nightmares. So if you're ever in rural Latin America and you hear your goat screaming in the middle of the night, maybe just stay inside. And definitely don't go out to investigate any weird dog-shaped shadow thingy with glowing eyes. Whether it's an alien experiment, interdimensional vampire, or just a really angry hairless dog, one thing's for sure, it's not asking for belly rubs. Have you ever seen a creature that looked like it could headbutt its way out of Minecraft creative mode? That's Dracorex, a walking medieval weapon with a skull like it was built for boss battles. It looked less like a dinosaur and more like a Pokemon that skipped character development and went straight to final evolution. When scientists discovered this thing in modern times, they were so excited about how dragon-like it looked that they threw all scientific name conventions out the window. The actual scientific name for this thing is Dracorex hogwartia, which literally means Dragon King of Hogwarts. And no, I'm not making this up. It does prove that paleontologists are just as nerdy as everyone else though. This thing had a skull that looked exactly like dragons from medieval paintings. We're talking spikes, horns, and a face that would make Smaug jealous. Medieval people found these skulls and they probably looked at these spiky nightmare fossils and were like, yep, that's definitely a dragon. And they weren't wrong. Dracorex was basically a real-life dragon that just happened to walk on 2 legs instead of flying around and burning villages. It was about 10 feet long, had razor-sharp teeth, and a skull that made it look like it crawled straight out of a fantasy novel. So the next time somebody tells you dragons aren't real, just show them a picture of Dracorex. And they even sound like a dragon. Because technically dragons did exist. Humans just couldn't figure out how to train them, I guess. And it gets worse from here. If you think walking dragons are impressive, just wait until you meet the flying one. Imagine you're just vibing and the sky glitches and you hear this sound. Wings the size of your house, a beak like a guillotine, and it's eyeing you like you're a Lunchable. This ain't a dragon from your favorite fantasy show. This thing was real, but these didn't breathe fire. It just dropped from the sky and ended careers. Imagine looking up and seeing this massive winged beast circling overhead like something straight out of Game of Thrones, except this ain't CGI. The pterodon was a flying death lizard that had a 23-foot wingspan and could soar for hours without flapping its wings. That's bigger than a small airplane, bro. When medieval people found these fossils, this is probably what started the flying dragon legends, and some called it a wyvern. You think some farmer peasant in the 1300s dug up a pterodon skull with that massive crest and 4-foot-long beak and thought, oh, it's just Big Bird? Heck no, bro! They looked at this nightmare fuel and immediately started drawing dragons in their manuscripts. The wing bones, the massive skull, the razor shark beak, everything about pterodon screams medieval dragon. Even the proportions match perfectly with those old dragon illustrations. So scientists basically confirmed that dragons were real in a way. They were just extinct by the time humans showed up to the party. And if you think these real-life dragon dinosaurs are the craziest thing God ever created, you forgot about the deep sea. You ever look at an animal and think, this can't be real? And I'm not talking about your bro. This thing makes the platypus look like a well-thought-out design choice. Meet one of creation's biggest design fail, the helicoprion. Instead of rows of teeth like a normal fish, this thing had a tooth spiral. Literally a buzzsaw just chilling in its lower jaw. Actually, it was called the buzzsaw shark. Scientists still don't fully agree on how it actually used its mouth, and helicoprion is probably like, I have no idea, bro, but it worked, so I don't question it. Some say it slashed its prey, others think it just spun its food like a Beyblade and prayed for the best. I guess God really said, let's give this shark a mouth that defies all logic, and somehow it survived longer than the dinosaurs. Also, let's be real, this thing makes the platypus look like it came out of Apple's design department. Helicoprion, this was Microsoft Paint with the free trial expiring. So this is the ultimate proof that sometimes you can succeed in life with your entire face design being a disaster. Like mine, I guess. And supposedly this is what it sounded like. Imagine going for a swim and the water fights back. Not with waves, with claws the size of your arm. This wasn't some lobster you could eat. This was Hecolopterus, 8 foot of prehistoric cash me outside energy.
Catch me outside, how about that?
It didn't swim, it hunted, it dominated, dragging fish into the abyss so angry like the ocean owed it child support. This 8 foot sea scorpion that ruled the ocean before sharks figured out how to be scary. Its claws alone were bigger than your head, which means this thing could literally give you a haircut you could never recover from. So that's what happened to my hair. Scientists found a fossil claw that was missing a quarter of its length, and it was still over a foot long. This thing had massive compound eyes that could track movement from across the ocean seafloor. It was too big to walk on land, so it was stuck in water, being a full-time aquatic menace. Meanwhile, modern lobsters that Red Lobster are basically this thing's embarrassing distant cousins who gave up on the intimidation business and chose butter sauce instead. But can you imagine if this thing existed today and you go fishing and this thing decides that your boat looked like a snack? While early fish were just figuring out how to swim in straight lines, Hecolopterus was out here perfecting the art of underwater yeet!
Stop it.
The ocean was basically ruled by giant venomous scorpions with unhinged bloodthirst. Modern sharks seem like goldfish compared to these prehistoric nightmares. And if you think an 8 foot venomous sea scorpion is peak horror, wait until you hear about this next one, man. Something massive used to glide through the ancient oceans, and no, it wasn't a submarine. It had flippers like oars, a shell like a bunker, and a vibe like it owned the sea. Not just a sea turtle either. Archaeolon was more like a floating fortress with an attitude. Let's talk about the real sea tank that made Jaws drop before Jaws ever existed. This thick boy was a sea turtle so massive it makes modern sea turtles look like Happy Meal toys. We're talking about a turtle the size of a 12-foot boat that could probably sink actual boats just by bumping into them. The Archaeolon had a skull over 2 feet long with a beak that could crack open pretty much anything in the ocean. Modern sea turtles eat jellyfish and seagrass like peaceful ocean hippies. This tank, with an attitude of your mom in a carpool line, ate whatever it wanted, including other sea turtles if they looked at it wrong. I keep talking about their moms are gonna hate me, man. The shell alone was bigger than a king-size bed, and those flippers were the size of surfboards. Imagine being a prehistoric fish swimming along and suddenly the entire ocean floor starts moving because you just woke up a turtle the size of a garage. This massive creature was so big that when it came up to breathe, sailors probably thought they discovered a new island. Sea turtles are supposed to be gentle, peaceful creatures, but when you're the size of a small building, gentle becomes more of a suggestion than a requirement. You know what they say, the bigger the head, the bigger the bite. That's why I can take out a 20-piece chicken McNugget in one bite. But guys, if you're scared of the ocean, this Bloop plushie can help you. He'll be your comfort pillow. Guys, I'll put the link for this guy in the description. Look how big he is, almost as big as my head. And if you like t-shirts, I do have some t-shirts I made for you guys. I don't care if y'all buy them or not. I made these things for you guys. I don't make money on this stuff anyway. And I also have a megalodon shirt. But I do have one more question for you.